Hi, it takes more than the mind to heal. We are with Shelley Pomfrey, licensed professional counselor and relationship coach. Hope you can watch us till the end. If you have any question which is related to health, trauma, and PTSD, and some connection between mind and body, you can join us and ask your question.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. We're gonna continue our talk after trailer. All right, Shelly, welcome to my show, Green Healing Show, and I can't wait starting this interview with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I love the topic. I love the work that you do and just really, highlighting this connection between the mind and the body. So happy to
Yeah,
be here.
thanks. And congratulations for your book. It's new release, number one new release now. Later, we're going to talk about your book as well. If people want, they can get it. Okay, tell
Thank
me
you.
about your history. What happened to you to be interested in counseling and relationship coaching?
Well, I think, I've been a therapist for 30 years now, so it's really been the only thing I've done in my career. And, it probably started off with just being a person who had a lot of empathy and compassion, mixed with growing up in my own dysfunctional family and becoming a really great caretaker. That's probably the root of it. But over the years, it just felt like my calling. And so I've just always been interested in this field and helping others heal, and have really just developed a niche in working with trauma. And in particular, right now, really helping people heal and prevent or heal from and prevent toxic relationships and narcissistic abuse. But I also do a ton of work with holistic healing and had even created a holistic mental health center here in Denver, Colorado, in the US, where we do psychotherapy, but we also have a lot of different healing modalities where, we don't look at just traditional psychology to help people heal. Because I really believe we have to look at lots of different aspects, mind, body, and spirit, to be able to help people really, truly effectively heal and transform their lives. So, kind of went from therapist into a lot of holistic healing, and this is where I'm at right now.
You know, Shelly, that's interesting. I talked to my family doctor. It's been some time I'm using, I have asthma, right? It's getting much better since I do functional medicine treatment. And I talked to him. I said, "Okay, I please um, tell me why you didn't diagnose or you didn't tell me that I have allergies to food or I have gut issues." And he said, "No, asthma is not related to that, and you have to use this puff forever. Do you use it
Right.
every day?" I said, "No, I don't know. I don't use it." I don't use it every day because I don't need it. You know, that's the problem with people who don't believe in mind and body connection and holistic healing, which the purpose of this show, showing people that yes, any chronic disease you have, please check your gut, check your overall health is not only about your even physical body, it's about your mind as well. So that's the whole purpose that we invited Shelly also talk about this. I know in your book you talk about uh, some emotional betrayal, right? Something like in relationship, because I know emotional breakup really, really affects our health. You can't believe it. Sometime I have I talk to a lot of PTSD coaches and talk to a lot of clients that have PTSD, and they also have physical problem. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, my book is focused on helping people identify if they are in an abusive relationship with a narcissist or a sociopath, or just, if you can't diagnose them, which most of us can't, an otherwise toxic partner. And what I really looked at is this concept of looking at internal and external red flags to help us tune in to our bodies to be able to identify when a relationship is not healthy for us. And so generally the book talks about external red flags, which is, how do we look at what's going on in this other person? How do I know the signs of a narcissist? What are the kinds of dynamics that might be going on in my relationship that would indicate that it's abusive? So that's a small part of the book, but the bigger part is about the internal red flags. And so I really help people learn how to listen to the cues of the body, whether it is symptoms of trauma or PTSD. And there are very particular symptoms that people experience if they're in one of these toxic relationships. And then another component, which is very fitting for this show, is some of the physical symptoms that people will start to have, especially if they've been in one of these relationships for a long time. The body starts to wear down from the stress, and it is extremely common for survivors of toxic or abusive relationships to have things like weight gain, insomnia. You can start to, over time, it might be more subtle symptoms like that, but it could be that you have aches and pains all the time, or you start to feel brain fog. You can't remember things or concentrate. And then you might start to see, like, leading into things like chronic fatigue, or chronic pain, even, that doesn't have any identifiable source, supposedly, according to Western doctors. Fibromyalgia, gut issues. I mean, gut issues are a huge part, like IBS, Crohn's disease. So a lot of times people are not connecting the dots between what's going on at home or in their relationship and what's going on in their body. So I really want people to take a look at that and see if you're experiencing that and it's happened since you've been in this relationship that's not going well. That could be a really significant red flag that you are in trouble in this relationship.
I talked to one of these functional medicine practitioners. She's also a doctor, like medical doctor, and she said that's interesting. Somebody come to me. He had a very bad depression, and then when we went through his whole body, we see that he has a lot of gut issues, a lot of protein digestion problem, a lot of problem in his body. And that's the interesting point, because his body was not happy. That's why he was depressed. When we asked him why are you depressed, he said, I don't know. I may have some trauma in my childhood, but still I have this heavy body as well. And when he goes to like other clinics, like for his mental issues, unfortunately they only gave him like antidepressant, uh, uh,
Mhm.
yeah, tablets. And then after his body was detoxified, and he get back to normal, he was not depressed anymore. you
Go
know
figure.
yeah, that's interesting. And he was like happy. I know the trauma also should be healed. I mean, as you said,
Mhm.
it's not only mind to heal, it's much more than mind. You have to connect all the pieces together.
Right. Absolutely. And it's such a good point. And even these days, if we just look at mental health, it traditionally, if you have depression, the doctor says, here, take some antidepressants. And there really is not a deeper look at what's going on. And, there are plenty of therapists who, we wouldn't do this job if we weren't taking a deeper look. So we're clearly trying to do that work and dig deep. But one of the things that's often overlooked is the gut and how much that can contribute to symptoms of depression and anxiety. For example, like there's this idea that serotonin, which is the chemical that makes us feel happy and not depressed, that it's produced in the brain. But we know from studies now that up to 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut. And if you are having a lot of inflammation or food allergies or intolerances and your gut is inflamed, you are not adequately producing or being able to send the serotonin up to the brain. And then you could be feeling depressed or anxious. But if a doctor isn't knowing that, or they're just prescribing you antidepressants and masking the symptoms, you're never really going to get full effective relief. So it's so important for people to start to recognize the connection between mental health and physical health.
I like that, especially for the puff I talking about. He said like you use the puff to open your airways, and then I said okay, and then it's gonna be closed again. What should I do? Why don't you go and find the hidden layers? Why do you give us this puff? Should I use it forever? So that's why I thought, even for myself, I went deeply through my body. I see I have cortisol low, I have some gut issues, many things that I never thought, because I never had any symptoms in other part of my body. But there are some small tiny things that you have to go overally and dig into it and find the problem. So do you have any case study in your practice that show how you can go beyond the mind?
Well, do I have any case studies? Is that what you asked?
Yes, yes, something successful that show that if somebody has depression from his relationship, now he's better. He feel even the health of his body is better.
Right. Well, I have had many people that I've worked with over the years, and I'll just even say in particular people who have been in abusive relationships. And when they finally leave the relationship and their lives start to settle down, they start to see the physical changes in their body as well. Now, some people, depending on the length of the abuse, or some people would maybe have had it their whole lives, where they grew up in a dysfunctional home and then they went into relationships like this, and so their body is really suffering from all of the stress and the stress hormones coursing through the body all the time. So they might, you might leave the situation and your body is still experiencing symptoms. But when you can, first of all, have an environment where things can be more calm, like there's not somebody driving you crazy every day, that in and of itself can start to let the nervous system start to relax, which then has a cascade of other things that happen in the body that can start the healing process. But then you might also need some other types of healing, whether it's psychotherapy or functional medicine, nutritional changes, acupuncture, energy healing. I mean, there's so many different modalities that can really jumpstart that um, healing process. So, I mean, we see it every day in my practice, where we offer a lot of those different healing modalities for people. And I see the people that make the most progress are the people that use at least one other complementary healing thing. So maybe they're in therapy, but they also go to acupuncture, or they add on yoga or energy healing. So having some kind of integrative practice on top of just whatever your main kind of healing modality is can be super effective.
Exactly. I was thinking this relational problem is not only for big adults, like people who are married or are in serious relationship. It mostly happen to teenagers as well. as well, because there are lots of breakups in the beginning of uh, relationships, and uh, they don't talk about it. So usually they don't allow themselves to talk, to be close to their parents, to talk about this. But I can see there are lots of depression and anxiety coming from this relationship, because they think that they are not enough. Maybe they are not
Yeah.
worthy enough to continue having more relationships. So when somebody come to you, let's say with a teenage uh, girl or boy come to you, what do you recommend? Because I know I had a relative, unfortunately, he went crazy after that breakup. He was very young, and after something he couldn't, tolerate, and he died
Mm.
after a lot of pressures. So what do you suggest to prevent this kind of trauma?
Well, I think, teenagers in general are under so much pressure these days. And when you add social media to it, it's just made it even stronger for them. Um, because it's like, to me, it just kind of magnifies all of the things that we've always had as teenagers. So I think it's important to look out for signs of depression. And, one thing to think about with depression in adolescence is, as adults, we often think of depression as feeling really down, and, maybe you don't have a lot of energy and you just want to be on the couch all day and you're sad. But adolescents in particular can actually look more irritable and angry when they're depressed. So sometimes we don't realize and you might just think, oh, they're just being a teenager. But that is actually a sign of depression with teenagers. So, you know, it, a lot of times parents don't have the best relationship with their teenagers because that's part of the normal developmental process. They need to start separating from parents and forming their own identity. So if you don't have a really great relationship, if you see some signs of anger, depression, they're not, they're isolating, they make negative comments about themselves, and especially if there's any kind of mention of suicide or hurting other people, finding a mental health professional that works with adolescents is very important. And just also it's just important to give them that option to talk to somebody, because they may not feel comfortable talking to you, but they might be more willing to talk to somebody that isn't their parent. But if you do have a relationship with them, and even if it's still, kind of stressful sometimes because they're teenagers, always like giving them the message like, you can come to me at any time. There's nothing that you can say to me that I'm not going to be here and support you with. Like, trying to be that open door no matter what is really important.
So you have a website, Shelly Pumphrey,
Mhm.
and what do you have there? And you also have Facebook group and Instagram, same thing, Shelly Pumphrey. Tell me about them, and do you have a community or do you have any freebies?
Yes, those are great places to find me on my website. I talk about the different services I offer, and I do therapy for people who are based in Colorado, but I also do coaching services for anybody across the globe. I do those, with a special interest in working with women who have been experiencing abusive or toxic relationships. And then I also have a Facebook group called the Toxic Relationship Recovery Group. So the links are on my Facebook page or on my website. And of course, my book right now is actually being offered for a 99-cent special deal until the end of May. So it's an ebook on Amazon at this point. So it's
What is
going
what is
for a
called?
steal. It's called Insight is 2020: How to Trust Yourself to Protect Yourself from Narcissistic Abuse and Toxic Relationships.
Mhm. I just have another question about narcissistic abuse. uh, how do I know? How do we know that um, we are involved in this situation? What is
Well,
the
that's
sign?
I mean, kind of this is why I kind of go into the internal red flags and external red flags. So, if we just want to get super specific about narcissists, some external red flags to look for in a person who is a narcissist. And I want to say that people can be narcissistic but not be fully meeting the criteria to have a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. So they might just have some traits. But generally speaking, people that are narcissistic tend to be, they might have an attitude of superiority, like they think they're better than everybody else or they deserve special treatment. They can be very entitled. Um, there's different kinds of narcissists, but some will be very, they might brag a lot about themselves. They might, not show any kind of concern about what other people think of them in, talking about how great they are. They can also, be really shallow or lacking in empathy. So they may seem like they don't really care a lot about you. Um, so those are those are some of the big kind of red flags to look for in a person that is narcissistic. Um, and there's other ways to tell if you might be involved in a relationship like that, even whether or not you can diagnose that person or not, because the truth is that's not your job if you're not a mental health professional anyway. So it's better to learn how to trust your instincts and trust the symptoms of trauma and the different things that can happen if you are with a partner that has narcissistic personality disorder.
So how can we react to this narcissistic have problems? Like if somebody look at us or treat us like this, and when you are in a relationship, you probably don't know or you don't understand why is the root, what is the root of this uh, habit. So how do we stand for it? Like what do we have to do against
Well,
this? Yeah.
one thing that I want to say is, if you are in a relationship with someone that you believe is a narcissist and they are, harming you in some way, it could be emotionally, verbally, physically, or otherwise, um, that the thing that's important to know is you may feel very confused about what to do in the relationship. You might, usually survivors of these relationships have moments where most narcissists show this kind of Jekyll and Hyde personality where one moment they're really loving and amazing and all attentive, and then the next moment they can be really cruel or abusive. And so when you see those two very distinct sides of a narcissist, you start to become very confused. And people will struggle to know if they should leave the relationship or not. So I want to say that, first of all, if you're experiencing that, that is a huge red flag that you are in the relationship with somebody who has some degree of pathology, whether it's narcissism or antisocial personality. um, but the other thing to think about as far as what to do is, if you're experiencing that or you're experiencing some of those red flags that I talked about, how to know if you're with a narcissist. Narcissists rarely change. And the reason why is they are not really capable of reflecting on their behavior or reflecting on how their behavior affects other people. Those of us that are not narcissistic have the ability to self-reflect and to worry about, well, if I do this, is somebody going to think I'm a bad person or I'm hurting their feelings? We think that way, but narcissists don't think that way. And therefore, they don't really have a lot of motivation to change. So, but they can also lie and manipulate and try to make you think they're going to change or they'll never hurt you again. And so, if you're kind of trapped in this cycle where you keep hearing promises that don't come true, or you're seeing this Jekyll and Hyde personality, that it don't stay. I mean, if I could just sum it up into one quick little thing, you need to find a way to get out. And I will say that most of the time, the best way to do it is to find a therapist or somebody who specializes in working with this, because it is not an easy thing to deal with. 75 to 90% of people who are in relationships with narcissists and being, experiencing this kind of abuse have symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's not something you should do on
No.
your own.
Yeah. And what you said is very similar to bipolar personalities,
Yeah.
because a lot of bipolar personalities have this narcissist in them. And I know people with bipolar, they think that they don't have any problem, and but sometimes they confess that they have problem. Sometimes they are very kind, very good, and then you say maybe I make a mistake, maybe I have to revise myself, but then you see no, that's going to be repeated again. So that's very similar to bipolar, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can be similar, but it's also very different. Like, I can see what you're talking about, because when somebody's manic, for example, they might seem like a narcissist in some ways, where they may, have a, you know, feel superior to others, or might have, kind of this outgoing, pushy kind of personality. It kind of depends on the situation. But, the difference between somebody with bipolar and somebody with narcissism is that a narcissist is going to lack empathy. Somebody that's bipolar will have empathy. They might be impulsive and make decisions when they're manic and acting out of that impulsivity. But if you really got, deep down inside and really understood what's going on, they would have empathy toward others, or would feel, some degree of awareness, or, feel bad about some of their behavior. But a narcissist is not going to do that.
All right, thank you for clarification. If you have any last words, any advice, or anything for, um, like if you have any masterclass or anything you want to talk about it, please do.
Yeah, I do. I think I just want to say, if any of this is resonating with anybody that's listening, or you have questions about your relationship, I do have a free webinar on my website. And I go over some things that women can learn to start to understand if they are in one of these toxic relationships, and what they can do to start to break free from them. So you just need to check out my website, shellypumphrey.com, and there will be links to that webinar there, and it's completely free.
Thank you so much, Shelly, for being here. Really, really enjoyed talking to you. If you have any question, you can reach out to Shelly on her Facebook or her website. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Please subscribe to Quanta Calhoun Transition channel and order my book, The Gap, in Amazon. Thank you.